This episode of Capes and Lunatics is brought to you by Tweaked Audio. Get awesome headphones, go to tweakedaudio.com and use the coupon code Southgate to get 30% off, free shipping, and a lifetime warranty. Or you can get there through the link on our website, southgatemediagroup.com.
Avast me hearties, and welcome once again to Full Stream Ahead. I'm your captain, Charlie, the Professor Esser, and with me as always is me skinny rich friend and first mate.
It's Mozz.
Hey Mozz, welcome once again. Episode of Full Stream Ahead. We are doing The Bloody Doors Off, based on Season 2, Episode 6 of The Boys. When the boys and Starlight follow a lead to Vought's mysterious Sage Grove Center, they find one of Vought's darkest secrets, and someone even darker from their past. Meanwhile, Homelander and Stormfront's relationship deepens. Okay, so we open up this episode, and we get a lot of, flashbacks and up-to-dates, and it's got a very disjointed storytelling, but you have to understand that it's like you could take out all of the flashback parts and put them together, and you get this really awesome story that is going on between Frenchie and his old gang. Oh, and you know what we forgot to talk about last episode?
What?
Was Kimiko hiring herself out as a killer.
Right. Oh, yes.
You know, we totally glossed over that.
With someone from Frenchie's life.
Yeah, Frenchie's old gang. And I forget that actress's name or her character's name.
Sherry, something like that?
Yeah, well, she calls her Sherry.
Wow.
So,
yeah. Right.
Because,
right.
Which means well, though her name could be Sherry, it's, but either way, so what we learned last week when, Frenchie does a thing, because Frenchie's not, in the plot with, Judy, with Aunt Judy and,
right.
and, Butcher. He follows Kimiko, and basically sees her rip someone's face off for this Russian mob, and it turns out that she was paid by the Albanians to kill these people because hey, she's now a super villain for hire, and that's pretty cool, and she's getting paid, and Sherry takes 10%, and we find out that that was our first hint at the backstory, which we get the full backstory here with Frenchie, Sherry, and their friend. And it's interesting because they do the Golden Girls, which is, another Deadpool reference. I'm just going to throw that out right now. And, Frenchie says that Sherry is Blanche, and the other gentleman is his Dorothy, and he of course is Betty White. And I find it interesting they don't say he's Rose, they say he's Betty White, because Betty White is an actress and Rose is a character, and Rose is, for what it's worth, a very different character than most of Betty White's roles. She's usually, she's usually much more the Dorothy kind of character. Or even the Sophia kind of character, if you actually look at most of her older roles. But being the very sweet, naive but naively wise one, that was something that was kind of unique for her from the Golden Girls. But that's not what Betty White had actually been famous for prior to that. So it's interesting that he says he's Betty White, and I think it's really just because I'm everyone's favorite. But it's but that's not who your character is. Frenchie's character isn't Rose. His character is, or not. Isn't Rose. His character is Betty White. So, an interesting little thing. Oh, we didn't say who wrote this one. Our director is, of course, Sarah Boyd. Our writing credits this week are going to Garth Ennis and Derek Robertson for those based on comic books by. And Eric Kripke developed it. And our hardest working person in show business, the actual writer, the person who put all the words together this week, is Anselm Richardson. Way to go, Anselm. We're all very happy for you.
Cool name, too.
Yeah, it is, honestly.
Anselm.
And we see... So in this, we opened it up with, Frenchie and his gang. He has this bomb with a lot of drugs in this bomb. He says, let's go rob a bank. And then we're going to cut to basically Frenchie removing Starlight's chip, which I have to appreciate that they kind of show that, a chip that you could track someone with has to be pretty big.
Right.
Because you've got to have a battery, and it's got to do this, and it's got to do all these things. It is interesting, especially when you think about with, various conspiracies about how they're going to chip you with something in the flu vaccine. And it's like, do you have any idea how big a chip has to be? But anyway, that's a whole other thing. That's just my own little personal thing. Oh, I like that detail that they make, that the chip is actually a big physical object that they had to take out. And still all it gives is location data.
Right.
And then they're going to Sage Grove because they know that Sage Grove is something. And they go there and, they enter. And this starts something of a riot. And we have, again, these parallel stories with the boys of, the Mother's Milk and Frenchie and Kimiko having to deal with escaping from Sage Grove hospitals, which we see is a hospital for essentially superhuman experiments that have, quote unquote, gone wrong.
Or are they training super terrorists?
Well, I kind of got that these were all people that it wasn't working the way they wanted it to work.
Oh, I thought it was like, well, I guess, yeah, but they're turning those people into super terrorists. Let's see if we can get something out of them. This was a failed experiment. We wasted a lot of money trying to get these people to become superheroes. But now we have a new need, so let's use all the rejects and turn them into supervillains, expendable supervillains that Homelander can take out.
I mean, possibly, except I don't think that's what Vought's doing.
Interesting.
I actually get the feeling that what's going on with Sage Grove is that they are trying to deal with that. They're doing further human experimentation to as we see later with Stormfront, to build the army of heroes, because they realize that you can't always just inject it into a baby, that you need people that you can have some kind of control over. But we also see that these are all people who their powers. So it's possible that these people were people that had superpowers, but that their powers are hurting them or hurting others. And of course, what happens in this episode, after Stormfront visits and speaks with one guy who wants out because he knows he's being held against his will, because and apparently he had attempted suicide, and that ended poorly. But he is the most promising character there because he has his powers fairly well under control, but also knows too much, and that leads to a whole thing that happens with that when Frenchie sees Lamplighter. He doesn't recognize him until they're watching on the closed circuit cam in the security office. That basically Lamplighter takes his Bic, and it's not a Bic, it's Zippo. Sorry, yeah, it takes his Zippo and like sets the guy on fire from the Zippo, because clearly his powers are a type of pyrokinesis that also includes an intensification. Essentially, I think his power is more than just pyrokinesis, but also the ability to make things burn. So that once the fire's there, he can make the fire be super fire, essentially.
Right. So it's much like Starlight needing a source of electricity to use her powers. He needs a spark in order to get things going. So maybe he's just introducing gas into it, or what do you think the mechanism is there? If that's
it's that once the fire's out there, he can both. So, if you ever, if you remember Pyro from the X-Men movies or from the comics, he's what's called a pyrokinetic, which means he can make fire move, but he actually can't create fire. But I actually think that that Lamplighter is a little bit more than that, because I think, yes, he can make the fire move, but he can also make the fire burn more. So, because like when you think about the amount of fire that's given off and I think maybe Starlight does this as well with the electricity she pulls, because it seems like she doesn't need much, she just needs enough, and then suddenly she can amplify it. And I think that Lamplighter can actually amplify the fire in the same way. And this becomes a thing because after Cindy breaks out, because essentially what happens is, they realize who Lamplighter is, and I think they go to confront him, and then essentially that leads to Cindy breaking out, and Cindy is essentially what is it? 11, from Stranger Things.
But also, she can't be hurt by bullets, right?
Well, it seems like she has a massive healing factor. It's like because it looks like the bullets hit her.
Right. She has all these holes that are bloody on her back.
Yeah, but then she's just like,
Yeah.
Why did you?
I wonder if she can will the bullets out of her body.
Yeah, well, I think maybe that's what it is too. Maybe it's interesting because I think there's a thing at the end where, much like Homelander, which we've said, she has much more control over her powers than we see from the initial display of it.
Right.
Because I think at the end, well, we'll get to the end at the end, but Cindy being basically shot and then and then not having that phase her, and then having her essentially crush people, is pretty impressive.
It really says, okay, somehow this person is being loaned out to crush people's heads.
Well, or she's just under control, because I don't think they can let her. That's the thing. That's why I don't think any of these people are supervillains. I think these people are not allowed to leave.
Right, no, but hasn't there been this whole mystery of who's the person exploding heads? And so it really seems to right now be pointing, hey, maybe this is the person. And then it's like, okay, so maybe she's a weapon that they keep here, but somehow they keep her drugged or whatever, and they take her out on missions, and then she explodes people's heads, and then they put her back in here.
Well, that is a theory that has been posed, that Cindy was the head popper.
Right. They really seem to imply that here, though, don't they?
Well, other astute viewers have said, but she's not really popping heads, she's crushing heads.
Right, but I mean, you said yourself she has really good control over powers, so maybe this is just her wilding out, but that when she's trained to be specific and be a sniper, she can.
I mean, it's possible. It's possible. I mean, that was a lot of, there was a lot of thought about her as the head popper, but essentially it comes to this idea. If you see Sage Grove as that any of these people are ready to go out, that's the thing. I don't think Cindy was ready to go out prior to this. I don't think Cindy was ever meant to be allowed out, because we can see that so much of Cindy's story is she's locked up, she is dangerous, and, we even have, Lamplighter's like, hey, come on, Cindy, I was nice to you. Remember I snuck you the extra shells and cheese like you like, got you the extra Jell-O. I'm your friend here, and that is what it is. But yeah, as we deal with this is where we also get we start getting the flashbacks of what happened the night Marlowe's it's Marlowe, correct? Mallory.
Right.
Mallory's children were killed.
Were they children or her grandchildren? Might have been her children. I think they were.
It might have been her grandkids. It might have been her grandkids. I'm trying to remember because I can't remember if she says grandmama or mama, but yeah.
Ooh.
About when he's confronting. But we get essentially this idea that when Frenchie robs the bank, and it's pretty cool because they have this. Apparently, the hero that would have stopped him was essentially like the Hulk. And was a rage-fueled monster, and so he created a weaponized Xanax, so that essentially, when he blows it up, the hero just sort of like stops being angry.
Right. He has these muscle relaxants.
Well, it was Xanax. They said
I got you.
Xanax. So it was like actually meant to level his mood, make it so he wouldn't get angry. And that's of course when Mallory hires him to be part of her group of superhero hunters, essentially, And we see that they do get one in Lamplighter, where they have his basically what they got on. If you remember at the start of the first episode when they get the video of Ezekiel, being gay, even though he's like gay's bad, which is weird, which is always weird to me. The guys who say that being gay is bad always get caught for being gay. It's like, then why were you saying being gay? Wouldn't it be smarter to say, hey, maybe it's not a horrible thing if people are gay? And then, maybe you could have used your powers for good instead of evil, but that's me. That's my own bag of hammers.
Well, I think their problem is people like that don't like themselves. And that's their first fault. They don't like themselves. They don't want to be reminded of it, and they don't want anybody else to think that they are that because they hate themselves so much.
Yeah, and that's true too. And I think, too bad they have superpowers. That's what I gotta say.
Yeah.
But anyway, as the story plays out in this universe, we get this idea that basically what happened was after they blackmailed Lamplighter to give them inside information on Vought, and for what it's worth, Mallory says, "Yeah, I think this is dangerous," because I think this was actually Butcher's idea. Butcher's idea was, look, if we get these guys, that what's going to control them is their image, and we can control that. Because she even says, we have to be careful of this because now he's a cornered dog, and that's dangerous. And Frenchie was following him all night, and then he disappears, as they say, because what happened was that the Dorothy of the group, whose name I don't know, and I'm not even seeing him here because I'm trying to see, because I don't see Sherry here either. I probably have to go to full
cast. Might be like Rose or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, but his name, but that actor, he basically has a drug overdose because they're all very, very high all the time. And, and that's fair. That's fair. I'm not going to fault that. I think his name was Dennis. It's Dennis and Cherie. I think that's who that was. Jason Gray, Stanford. Nope, that was not Dennis. That's someone else. But they had him next to Cherie, so I assume.
Oh.
But anyway, yeah, I'm not seeing him here, but he dies. Essentially, he dies. Dies of a drug overdose, and there is...
No, don't they save him?
Dude, no, I think he dies anyway.
No, well, he dies anyway, but that moment he is able to save him. Oh, that's right.
They save him, and then he dies a week later.
Right, and he says, like, I let these children die to save a person that was going to die anyway. That's his regret.
Yeah, and
it was like Batman choosing Rachel over the DA.
Yeah, and then because he leaves him, he leaves
The scene, Lamplighter is able to kill the grandkids or the kids.
Yeah, might be Jay because they don't have a picture for Jay, so I don't know if that's who it was. But anyway, yeah, it's tragic, and it is what this, the whole thing has been. And for what it's worth, Mother's Milk makes a point. It's like, man, if you had told us, we wouldn't have held this against you all this time. And he's like, who says I wanted to be let off the hook?
It's like, your opinion doesn't matter. I hate myself for it. I feel guilty. There's nothing you can do about that.
A lot of self-loathing in this show, you'll notice.
Yeah.
A lot of damaged people with a lot of damaged problems. It's sad in its own way, but also it's part of their growth, part of their therapy, if you will. They do decide they do get out of it, though. I mean, that's the joy here, is that after all of this catharsis, they do get out. But before we get to that, I want to talk about another aspect of this story, because there's so many stories that go on in these things. It's hard to always keep them under one track.
Right.
You also have the fact that basically when Cindy gets out, when the big break happens, there is a guy with EMP powers who basically has been being tortured in this, and he's wandering out, and he wanders out through the thing and comes across Huey and Starlight and Butcher. And he basically, I don't know if it's accident. That's the thing, is I don't know if it's accidental. I think it's almost like it was a reflex, like he can't control it.
Right.
Because he's like, I just don't want them to hurt me again.
Yeah, I mean, he's just being he's just self-preservation minded at this point. That's all it is. You can't trust that these aren't Vought agents going to take him back. I mean, you'd have to do a lot of convincing pretty quickly for him to not think that.
Well, no, I feel it was involuntary, because I think that his whole thing was, no, just go on. We're not going to stop you. You leave. You be good. You be safe.
But that's the likely story that they would try to tell him before they put him in a trap.
Well, I mean, possibly, but I don't know. I guess it's possible that he did that just to be safe.
Yeah, I can see that.
But that got him killed too. So I
know. It's an unfortunate set of circumstances.
Yeah, that's why I think it was actually just an accident. He does it, and that and then Butcher basically kills the guy. Which, to be fair, I can see why. But at the same time, I guess it's just that question: was that an accident or was that intentional? But either way, you're too dangerous. You have to leave. But Butcher makes his choice. He kills the guy. And then we see that, unfortunately, Huey wasn't so lucky because he was in the van. And that's the thing. I think, like, when Huey waves at the guy, that's why I think that it was involuntary. Because I think the guy looks at Huey and says, Huey does not look like he is trouble in any way. Like, Butcher, yes, he could be a Vought or agent here to kill me. Starlight, definitely. Huey?
Yeah.
Probably less so. But then he just, like a tick, where he just has to let this out and he can't control it. And that's what happens. Which is, sad and problematic, but also just the story we're dealing with. Huey basically has a big shard of glass. Why they had a big thing of, like, plate glass in the back, I don't know.
Was it glass? I thought it was just like a piece of the truck that had torn off.
Was it? Oh, for some reason I thought it was a piece of glass. It was something big and stabby that was stuck into him. I guess it might have been part of, like, maybe the passenger side window, but
yeah, just like
where it was a weird spot for it to be. But anyway, they realize that they've got to get Huey to a hospital, and Starlight can't use her powers because the EMP guy set off an EMP blast, which turned off all electricity in the area. So now the battery's dead in the car, and she has nothing she can cauterize the wound with. So they actually had to get Huey to a real hospital, which is super dangerous, but they know they have to. and they wind up, getting back to a main road. They manage to flag down a car.
And I love in this moment the genuine, urgent concern that he has for Huey. He immediately sees his younger brother in that moment, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, it is this thing where, he has brought Huey into this world, and, he's responsible for Huey, and he has to figure out a way to save him. But we get this situation with the guy and his gun in his car because they want to commandeer the car, but the guy doesn't want to give it to him. And why didn't he just give us the car? Why did they just but at the same time, that's also the situation with Butcher does Starlight kill him, or does Butcher kill him?
Starlight kills him. Because he pulls a gun on Butcher.
Yeah.
And she just pushes him away, but he ends up landing in a way that kills him. It's similar to what the EMP guy just did.
Yeah,
it's one of those situations where you don't really have a lot of time to analyze. You just think and act, and your first thought, you just roll with it. Her urgency was Huey's life, and this dude's urgency, the EMP guy, was not being sent back into that horrible place to be tortured.
Exactly. And so
I like that they, had her get her hands dirty too. It's like it would have been such a typical TV show trope to make her not have to get her hands dirty, but I thought it was an interesting move that she has a lot of darkness to deal with too now. She is truly one of them.
Yes, exactly. And but that's the thing, and that goes into this idea of, you're like Homelander because he kills too, and it's like, I'm not like Homelander. But really, what the real story is that in its own way, Butcher and Homelander, and maybe even Starlight too, all kind of cut from the same cloth. Although I do think that...
And I think that's the broader point. We all would love to have an enemy to blame that is sort of the avatar of all these bad things, but what we fail to realize is that we are all struggling with these same things to different degrees, but I think it's equally as important to monitor those feelings in ourselves and not just say, this person is the worst version of it. I couldn't possibly have this in me. And when push comes to shove, you learn who you really are. And that all of us should be making those choices better,
Yeah, and in that sense, though, we also get with Huey and Butcher and Starlight this idea that Huey keeps us human. Huey prevents us from going down this dark path, and that's why he was so important to save. Basically, Butcher and Starlight both realize they do not deserve a friend as good as Huey, and which is its own trope. But I'm just gonna let it be for right now. Just this idea that he is just a guy who will always hang on and fight for you.
Right. It's interesting. You need that sort of other side of the coin. It's like if anybody's ever seen The Walking Dead. I stopped watching after they killed Shane, because after they killed Shane, Rick became crazy. Like back in the day when Shane was the designated bad, or he would do the bad thing, it would force Rick to be more good, to sort of sway the party's opinion in the favor of the good decision. But once they killed off Shane, Rick had no counterbalance, so he had nothing guiding him to tell him what not to do or how to not be bad. And anything was open game, and he turned into sort of a more and more desperate and sometimes you could say evil character without Shane balancing him out. So it was this same thing that they need from Huey.
Right. They need their canary, and that's the thing that we get with this. This is the person who tells you step back. You need that person who gives you balance. We have essentially Lamplighter lies to Stormfront and makes the point, basically he wants out. He wants out of whatever Vought's doing. He's been through this too long and too much, and he's ready to quit. And what occurs is an interesting thing, because we get the confrontation between Mallory and Lamplighter. where she just wants to shoot him.
But we've also learned that Lamplighter didn't know that the kids were in the bed. He just thought it was going to... Yeah. So
but it was killing her.
Yeah, he's been feeling bad about it, and as bad as Frenchie has been feeling about it, he finds a little bit of kinship in him in knowing, oh my God, he's been dealing with these same sort of feelings and issues that I have been this whole time.
Mm-hmm. And there's also a secondary aspect of this, which is this idea that it was never Vought. It wasn't that Vought ordered the death of these children, or Vought wanted to take out Mallory even. This was one rogue superhero doing a stupid thing, which in its own way is exactly what the argument is. It's like, Vought would have never sanctioned that. They're a company. They have stockholders to consider. They're not in the business of just, let's go kill the head of the CIA's children or grandchildren. It's like, no. It was totally just this idea that, one lone nut decided to use his powers for evil instead of good, and evil occurred. And now he wants to make do. And it's also that reality that, as Frenchie says, he has to live with this forever. And that is something that is far worse than death. That death may feel good for you, but it actually just lets him off the hook. And he does not deserve to be let off the hook. So that, I think, is a very interesting take on it. And then we see that speaking of superpowered children that will not be ignored, we have Homelander burn down his trailer on the set. We have poor Ashley telling her assistant, "Do not tell me you don't know where Starlight is." And it is just a dramatic turn of events, the whole thing. And hey, just out of curiosity, have we already had this scene where the scientist's head explode when he's testifying before Congress?
I don't think so.
Okay, man, I'm trying to remember, because it's like there's only 2 episodes left, and I'm trying to figure out what happens in the next 2 episodes, because I know there's so much that happens.
Yeah, I think it is the last 2 episodes that everything just breaks wide open.
Yeah. Oh, that's right, because then we have, just where it goes next and where it goes next and where it goes next.
Yeah.
Oh, Gavalt, that's right. Okay, so spoilers, more head exploding in the next couple of episodes.
Yeah.
But back to this episode, Stormfront decides to be honest with Homelander about who she is and where she's from, and they basically reveal that she was Vought's wife. She was a Nazi and still is.
And Vought was a Nazi.
Vought was a Nazi. I'm always, and maybe just because, as kind of a science nerd myself, I'm kind of always a little more...
So Vought is obviously Werner von Braun, right?
Essentially is the idea, yeah. And I've one of these things where I wanted Werner von Braun to be a much nicer person than he actually wound up being when you actually study the historical record. As a kid, Werner von Braun, although, Tom Lehrer warned me. I wanted to think of him as just the guy who made the rockets go up, and that he was apolitical, but actually, no, he was not. He was a schmatzi. And so was Stormfront. And I think it's one of these things where it is very notable that she is a dark-haired, dark-eyed, big-nosed girl.
Huh.
And a Nazi. Much like a lot of these Nazis, where there is, again, that...
Yeah, so she was the first superhero. She must have been the first to be tested on, so that might mean that Vought pulled her from one of the concentration camps, and then she was originally...
No. She explained it. She was Vought's wife, and he gave her the serum.
Right, but he could have pulled his wife from there, done test, fell in love, and then married her.
No, well, I mean, I took the timeline as he married her, and then after they had the successful serum, they gave it to her.
Huh. I wonder if they explicitly stated that, because now that you're pointing it out, it seems like they're trying to make a point by casting this person in this role. So you know.
Okay. Have you ever seen a picture of Adolf Hitler?
Right.
Does he look like the Aryan
No.
ideal?
No.
And again, there is so much self-loathing. And again, getting back to that idea of self-loathing. And that idea that we were speaking about with Ezekiel. And that idea that, oh, yeah, I hate that thing that is in me. Because I think that all of my problems are because of that I'm not 6'2", blonde and stacked, is because I must have some of that lesser DNA in me that I must purge myself of, and we must purge the world of. It is that hatred, that self-hatred, that fuels Hitler, and definitely fuels modern fascists to this day. You will, not to get political, but yeah, you will notice that they tend to be very judgmental about things they themselves are constantly doing. So it's a repeated pattern, and
right.
I think that is what they're trying to say. They could have made her, that she is married as the Aryan goddess, and that's why she's chosen. But really what it is that, like Vought himself, a dumpy little nerd who now is filled with ideas of self-aggrandizement of, no, I'm actually this, and that's why I am the pure race, and all the yada yada yada. And I kind of was hoping for, and I love that line that Homelander says when she comes to him, and after she basically stands him up, and it's like Homelander is not feeling that. And she's like, yeah, you said you weren't very breakable. I'd like to test that out. Really scaring her, and that's why she admits it. And I kind of was hoping that Homelander would have freaked out by that he doesn't is annoying. But then again, it's feeding into this idea that you're the best of us, you'll be the leader.
Right.
I still don't think he's down with it. Maybe it's my own. I'm going to defend Homelander. I think he is a narcissist. I don't think he's political. I do agree. I think, but she's manipulating him the whole time. I mean, there's a measure of us. There you are. Oh, you dropped out for a minute there.
Sorry. That he's the best of us, and that that she's playing on his ego. That he's able to overlook a lot of that stuff because she's placating his ego in that way, and that she's manipulating him the whole way.
Yeah, he is. Although, I think she also has that starry-eyed, I get to be with the football star, She's like, oh, I get to be with the Aryan ideal now because I've earned it. I get to be his bride now. I don't have to be just the nerdy guy's bride. I can actually...
Right. Mr. Vought won't die.
Exactly. And that's also why she isn't outing Starlight, because she is likewise that blonde-haired, blue-eyed ideal. Now, I had hoped she was going to because that's the thing. I think, because they really sold to make her a likable character up until that moment.
Yeah.
I really wanted her to just be, kind of like the kind of person that just sees superhumans as the real master race, and that everybody, white, black, and different, they're all lesser. But I realized, last episode they even made the point that she doesn't like A-Train. Although that could have also just been that A-Train isn't super anymore, or isn't as...
Yeah, but then you couple that with another instance where she really enjoyed killing a black man, and then or supposedly if she's really Liberty. We find out that she is based on her reaction with Starlight in the trailer, right?
Yeah, you did that last episode. Well,
right.
You don't get that there, but in the trailer is when she says no, going against your own people, meaning going against super. So I thought that was going to be their racist take on it, but it's less than that. She's just a straight up Nazi, and this is the episode where we get the confirmation of it, and it makes sense. It makes absolute sense, and Stormfront was a Nazi in the comics, although it was a dude, and I don't know if he was actually Captain Nazi back in World War II, and then he just rebranded himself, and think that might have been what the storyline there was. But it's where we're at, and there's a lot that happens in the next 2 episodes, and it is just shocking to realize that as much as has already happened, that was like the weirdest thing. I was going, wait, this is only 8 episodes? Why did this feel like it was 16 episodes? Why do I feel like it was so much story that we got in this? But that's why it's a really good show, is they know how to tell a good story quickly. So you get so much lore and so much character and so much development in a relatively short period of time, where I'm trying to think, like, man, how are they going to do the whole Stormfront and, we don't want to get on anything, but there's like 3 more arcs in the next 2 episodes, maybe 4 or 5 more arcs in the next 2 episodes, and yet they weave them together seamlessly, which is why this is really a great show. So, anyway, any final thoughts, Mozz?
I think the other thing that is important to mention, because it sets up later, is Maeve using the Deep to find the videotape of their airplane incident where Homelander allowed all these people to die. And what's her partner's name? But she gets a hold of it and starts watching it and is.
Oh no, that's next episode.
Are you sure?
Is it?
I think it happens either this or it might have even happened last episode.
Well, I think this episode is where she gets it, and I don't think, because they weren't even sure if it works yet. Or maybe I'm mistaken. I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, I know that in this episode, Maeve gets it. Maeve gets the camera, and then it's like she has to sort of get it to work. So I don't know if we see it yet. And again, this is like so much happens. Now, I know this last episode I watched on because I did a full rewatch on the first one, but I just did a quick rewatch on this one, and
I remember seeing that moment of well,
maybe maybe it was here, and then because last episode, it probably was this episode, but anyway, it's rough being Maeve, and just trying to get the data out of the phone and or the camera, and it is set up here, and this is, and again, this is why I think we're gonna get something big with the Deep next season. The Deep, I hope so. Mark my words, the Deep. I want Deep to go full Prince of Atlantis eco-terrorist, and I've said this many times. I want to see him and Homelander go at it in the ocean, and Homelander just getting totally beat up by the Deep, because I know that the Deep can do that. That basically, if sets one toe in the water and all of a sudden the Deep just is dragging him down to the bottom of the Marineris Trench and is beating him mercilessly, and because we don't know that Homelander can survive without oxygen. Just as a thing, we've like not seen him do certain things. I guess obviously he flew at jet plane level where the air is very thin. But that said, that's not the same as actually not needing oxygen at all.
Right.
And, if we get Homelander with his lungs filled with oxygen and his eyes, just imagine that visual of his eyes like starting to glow and then just slowly fade out. Just to show that, there's a lot more dangers in the world than Homelander. And we're still waiting to see what Edgar's story is. And that is, that's the thing. When she says she got the first successful V injection, I really felt that was a statement that she got the injection after they had proven it was safe, which means that one of the test subjects had to have gotten it as well. That's the thing. Is like it strikes me that another test subject, there must be another human who got it as well, but wasn't considered the first to receive this because it was the test subject. I don't think that Vought just experimented on his wife, or maybe he did. Maybe it was like he made it completely tweaked to her DNA, and that's how she got to be perfectly superpowered from the deal. But then you think if he had that system down pat, that he could do that, he could replicate it with others. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see next season, man. That's stuff that we don't even get until next season, I'm sure. But this one, this was a great episode, and I think we've covered it all.
Yeah.
And if you've all enjoyed listening to this, I'm guessing you're doing it on tweaked audio headsets. A lot of people will use those dollar store headsets, that I do myself sometimes because it's so cheap and so easy. And you know what? When you go the cheap, easy route, you get the quality you pay for. And those break down and those aren't as good. But if you go over to tweakedaudio.com, use the coupon code Southgate, not only can you get high quality audio equipment for your listening pleasure, but also get it at a discount. Likewise, that same coupon code Southgate can be used if you go over to Hunt a Killer and get effectively an escape room delivered to your house every I believe it's every month, where it's just clues and hints and things to help you solve the mystery that Michelle Gray is trying to solve, a cold case that she's working on, and that's good. And if none of that interests you, just go down to the show notes, click on the Amazon link, go to Amazon, buy whatever the heck you want, costs you nothing, helps out the show, and while you're there, check out Pod Life, the book, a book written by and for the Southgate Media Group family, and for all of you not in the Southgate Media Group family, but are just fascinated by why people podcast. And how podcasting may have saved people's lives. So check that out. It is available in digital book. It is available in paperback. It will soon be an audiobook. We're working on that right now. And check that out as well. And in the meantime, if you want to reach out to me or Mozz over here on Full Steam Ahead, Mozz, how can they find you?
Oh, they can email me at mozzmanzor@gmail.com or find me on Facebook under Mozz Manzor. That's MOZZMANZOOR.
And, of course, you can always write to me in that old-fashioned email way the way our Mozz and Poz once did on superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. Of course, follow me on Twitter as I live tweet Mondays at 7 p.m. the current DuckTales series. Come and join me as we explore the Disney Afternooniverse at Charlie Esser. That's CHARLIE. Yes, SER. Look for the 2 E's in the middle.
For quality. Bing!
Thank you, Mozz. All right, me hearties. It has been another adventurous sailing trip down the bounding main. Join us again next week as we once again go full stream ahead. Arg.
Yarg.